My family went on the vacation I paid for without me and didn't even call. Now they want me to forget it. I won't. 3 days after I transferred the full $12,000 for that luxurious villa in San Diego, my mother Elaine called. Her voice was sickeningly sweet, the way it only gets when she's about to take something. I immediately felt my stomach clench. It's always a bad sign. Elaine doesn't ask, she notifies. She doesn't care about your plans, she rearranges them. And every time the topic shifts to the money I earned, she suddenly remembers that I am her daughter, and therefore I owe her by birthright. This isn't the first time they've done this, but this incident eclipsed all the rest. I'm Jessica, 32, and I've been working my butt off for the last 10 years. I have my own small but successful design bureau. My brother Kevin, 35, and his wife Sarah have 2 kids, and they are constantly broke. Kevin is a great guy but an irresponsible dreamer. He's always launching some genius startup that is just about to hit big, requiring investments from me or our parents. Our parents, Elaine and Robert, live on their pension and my rare aids, which somehow became a regular income stream. I constantly feel like the only pillar holding up our loving family. When I once, a couple of years ago, allowed myself to buy a new good car, my mother staged a drama that lasted for weeks about how I could spend that much money on myself when Kevin was in need. I kept silent and accepted it back then, but something broke inside me. This vacation was supposed to be my gift. To everyone. To Kevin and Sarah. A break from the kids. To my parents, a well-deserved rest. To me, a chance to spend time with them and feel like all those years of hard work weren't wasted, that I could make them happy. I found the villa myself. 3 bedrooms, a pool with an ocean view. Exactly what I had pictured in my dreams while working late nights on projects. I told them about it 3 weeks ago and everyone was thrilled. "Oh Jay, you're our angel," Sarah gushed. "My clever girl," my father nodded sagely. "I knew you would take care of us," Elaine stated, not thanked. No gratitude, just a confirmation of her expectations. We planned the trip for the first week of August. We were supposed to fly out in 4 days. I booked their tickets myself. When I called Kevin to discuss who would handle the airport transfer, he started stammering something vague, muttering about some urgent meeting. I didn't believe it. He never cancels his plans when it comes to his relaxation, and this was San Diego. He just said, "Jay, we'll figure it out ourselves. You're too busy right now, you don't need this hassle. Why would you bother with all that?" It sounded strange. "What hassle, Kevin? I'm flying with you, it's my gift," I replied, feeling my anxiety rise. Yeah, just relax." And then Elaine called. That same soft, cloying voice. "Jessica, honey, I have some news for you," she began. "Kevin, Robert, and I decided that it would be better for you to stay now. Your big new project, it can't wait, can it? You yourself said the deadline is tight. Well, perfect. You'll stay and finish it and we won't distract you. The vacation will be for us." I remember gripping the phone tightly. The deadline she mentioned ended 2 weeks ago, and she hadn't even bothered to check. I finished that project. I finished it so I could go on this vacation. "Elaine, I finished the project. I'm flying with you. I paid for this villa." My voice was steady, but everything inside was shaking. "Oh, nonsense. We don't want you wasting your time. You know, Kevin needs this more right now. He needs to recover before his new breakthrough. And you are strong. And you always work so much. You'll catch up." She said this with such mundane certainty, as if she were talking about leaving me the last slice of pizza in the fridge. She decided for me. "Did you already buy tickets? Did you already buy tickets for different dates?" I asked. No, we're flying on the ones you booked. We just took care of you." And then I understood. They simply cut me out. Cut me out of the vacation I paid $12,000 for. In that moment, the money wasn't the issue, but the realization of how little respect they had for me. How certain they were of my meekness. "Fine," I said and hung up. No shouting, no tears, just emptiness. I didn't tell them that $12,000 was half a year's worth of savings. I just sat down and stared at the wall. 2 days later, when I called Kevin to try and figure things out, he didn't answer. I called Elaine and she, with an edge of annoyance, hissed, "We're at the airport, Jessica. We don't have time. We'll talk when we get back." And they left. They left without saying goodbye on a vacation I gave them, and left me sitting in an empty apartment while they enjoyed my pool with an ocean view. I felt not strong, as Elaine said, but cheated and betrayed. It's been 2 days since then. They haven't sent a single message. Not one photo. Complete silence. The $12,000 I should have spent on my dreams turned out to be a ticket to a dream for people who don't even respect me. But the most important thing is, I suddenly realized I no longer want to keep quiet. They think I'll forget. I won't forget. They started sending me postcards with pictures of my own pool, calling them souvenirs. I decided to hit them where it hurts most. The sheer audacity of it left me paralyzed for a full day. I stared at my phone waiting for a text, a picture, anything that would suggest they felt even a sliver of guilt. Nothing came. Not from Elaine, not from Robert, and especially not from Kevin. My brother, who was supposed to be my ally, had become a willing participant in the heist. The realization wasn't just painful. It was a cold, hard slap of clarity that shattered the cozy illusion of my family. They hadn't just taken a trip. They had confirmed my role in their lives. The ATM with no withdrawal fee. The silence was the worst part. Total radio silence, which meant they were actively enjoying themselves and deliberately choosing not to include me in any capacity. Not even a token, half-hearted, wish you were here message. I had paid for a week of luxury and was sitting here in my small sunless office, trying to concentrate on small, tedious projects, but all I could see was the sparkling blue of the San Diego ocean. Then, on the third day after their departure, the first one arrived. Not a text message, not an email. A physical, tacky, brightly colored postcard. The front showed a generic shot of a palm-lined beach that wasn't even near the villa. I flipped it over. In my mother Elaine's elegant, looping handwriting it said, "Having such a relaxing time, darling. The weather is divine. The pool is just what we needed. I told Robert that you would be thrilled to know we are making good use of your generosity. Don't work too hard. Love, Mom and Dad." I crumpled it immediately. It wasn't a gesture of inclusion. It was a psychological weapon. It was them marking their territory, confirming their ownership of my experience. And calling it generosity? It was $12,000 I'd sweated blood for. Generosity is when you give freely to someone without them demanding it and then using it against you. This was extortion disguised as familial love. The next day, Kevin sent an actual photo via text. It was a picture of him and Sarah, both beaming, sitting on the edge of the exact pool I had meticulously chosen, with the ocean view in the background. Sarah was holding a cocktail. The caption simply read, "The kids are fine with Grandma and Grandpa. We really needed this, Jay. Thanks for the privacy. The blender here is amazing. Thanks for the privacy." That phrase hit me like a physical blow. They framed my exclusion as a thoughtful service to me, giving them privacy so they could enjoy themselves without my oversight. They were enjoying the fruits of my labor while essentially telling me to wait outside the door. This wasn't about a simple scheduling mistake. This was a coordinated, deliberate act of emotional and financial dismissal. I started digging. I didn't want to ruin their vacation yet. I wanted to understand the full extent of the betrayal before I acted. This was not a rash decision. This was about reclaiming my self-respect and my money. I needed ammunition. I logged into my online banking, checking the detailed statement. The $12,000 had cleared the rental agency. Then I checked the flight details. I had booked flexible economy tickets for all of us. I pulled up the reservation for myself. It was still valid. But when I checked their reservation, I saw a subtle, chilling detail. 2 days after I'd booked everything, the three of them had upgraded their seats to first class using their own credit card. It wasn't a huge expense compared to the villa, maybe $1,500 total, but it spoke volumes. They not only used my money for the core expense but had the extra audacity to spend their own money only on additional comfort for themselves without me. They didn't even offer to upgrade mine. It was a clear line drawn in the sand. We are the privileged travelers. You are the provider who stays home. I called my friend Marcus, a pragmatic lawyer who specialized in contract law, mostly business. I didn't tell him the full context, just a hypothetical scenario about a large payment made to a third party for a service that was subsequently used by others without the payer's consent. He gave me a rundown on the legal gray areas of gift versus payment and what constituted unjust enrichment, but quickly added, "Jessica, are we talking about a massive corporate fraud, or just hypothetical, Marcus?" I lied smoothly. "Just curious about the legal leverage." He laughed, unaware of the ice forming in my veins. "Leverage? In that case, you always hit the most direct pain point. Don't go for legal battles unless you have to. Find their weakness and apply pressure. People are rarely worth the legal fees." Marcus's words echoed in my head. Find their weakness and apply pressure. I knew their weakness. It wasn't the $12,000. It was the public image of their perfect, loving family, and more importantly, Kevin's perpetual need for my financial safety net. I knew about the urgent meeting he had lied about. It wasn't a meeting. It was the final pitch for his latest, supposedly revolutionary idea to a local venture capitalist firm in San Diego, where he'd planned to combine the pitch with his family vacation. He needed to present himself as successful, stable, and backed by family support. The villa was part of the staging, and the actual source of the funds, was an inconvenient distraction. I spent the next day, which was day 5 of their trip, doing deep research on the VC firm Kevin was meeting with. I didn't just want my money back. I wanted them to understand the consequences of treating me like trash. I knew Kevin's pitch was scheduled for the 7th day of their vacation, right before they were supposed to fly back. I started drafting an email. Not to the family, not yet. This was the opening salvo, the strategic move that would set the stage for the coming conflict. I needed to ensure that when I finally confronted them, I wasn't asking for my money back. I was demanding it with undeniable leverage. The emotional pain was intense, but I channeled it into cold, calculating focus. I felt a surge of energy, the kind you get when you finally stop being the victim and decide to become the one holding the cards. The game was on, and they didn't even know they were playing. I sent a single email and the ocean view turned into a nightmare. They called me, screaming about how I ruined Kevin's $500,000 deal. Day 7. The day of Kevin's big pitch, and the crescendo of their opulent, unearned vacation. I was still sitting in my apartment, staring at the crumpled postcard and the cold, unfeeling photo of my brother and his wife enjoying my pool. The emotional tension was a physical ache in my chest, a tight knot of betrayal and resentment that needed to be violently unwound. I had moved past the hurt. Now I was operating purely on the desire for justice, and maybe just a little bit revenge. I knew exactly what I was doing, and the potential fallout was enormous. A catastrophic nuclear option for our already fractured family dynamic. But they had forced my hand. They made me pay $12,000 for a lesson in my own dispensability. That was a price I was no longer willing to swallow. The email I had drafted, the one Marcus's pragmatic advice had inspired, was not addressed to Kevin's VC contact directly. That would have been too obvious, too easily dismissed as petty family squabbling. Instead, I sent a concise, professionally worded email to the VC firm's chief compliance officer and copied Kevin's main contact, a man named Mr. Harrison. The subject line was innocuously formal. Follow-up inquiry regarding Kevin's investment proposal. Documentation integrity. The body of the email was pure, distilled poison, delivered in the politest possible tone. Dear Mr. Harrison and compliance team, I am writing as Jessica Miller, the CEO of and a concerned party regarding the ongoing financial stability and presented assets of Kevin Miller. I understand Kevin is presenting a proposal today related to his new venture. I wish to simply confirm the basis of certain financial representations he may be making. Specifically, if his presentation includes any claims of ownership, rental or exclusive use of the property, please be advised that the entire $12,000 cost for the August 1st to 8th rental period was solely incurred and paid for by myself, Jessica Miller, and was intended for a family event that I was subsequently unable to attend. I retain full documentation of the payment and the rental agreement. This is purely an internal family matter regarding expense division, but given the significant capital you are considering, I felt compelled to ensure that all represented assets and resources supporting his stability assessment are transparently documented as his own personal, recurring, or reliably accessible funds. I trust this information is helpful in your due diligence process. I look forward to resolving the expense division internally. Sincerely, Jessica Miller. I hit send at exactly 9 a.m. Pacific Time, precisely 1 hour before Kevin's scheduled pitch. The silence that followed was deafening, but this time, It was pregnant with anticipated chaos. It didn't take long. 2 hours later, my phone vibrated. An insistent, aggressive buzzing. It was a call from a number I didn't recognize. A San Diego area code. I let it ring twice, enjoying the brief, sweet moment of control, then answered. "Hello?" I said, keeping my voice cool, detached, and utterly professional. "Jessica, what the hell did you do?" It wasn't Kevin. It was Elaine. Her sweet, measured voice was gone, replaced by a shrill, hysterical shriek. The background noise was muffled, frantic, definitely not the sound of a relaxing ocean breeze. "To what are you referring, Mother?" "The email. The disgusting, malicious email you sent to those people. To Mr. Harrison. He canceled the second round of talks. He said they have concerns about undisclosed liabilities and misrepresentation of financial backing. Kevin's pitch, the $500,000 seed round, it's gone. Ruined." The number, the $500,000, hung in the air. That was the scale of the conflict I had just engineered. I hadn't just demanded my $12,000 back. I had detonated a $500,000 opportunity. I felt a fleeting tremor of guilt, but it was quickly obliterated by the tidal wave of their immediate, unearned entitlement. "I simply provided clarification on a financial transaction," I stated calmly, like discussing the weather. "The $12,000 for the rental was mine. If Kevin was claiming that expensive villa as his personal asset, or using it to imply a level of success he hasn't earned, then I merely corrected the record for their due diligence." "You did this deliberately. You planned this." Her voice broke into a desperate sob. "You are deliberately trying to destroy your own brother. We told them this was a family-owned retreat. That we always stay here." "You mean you lied?" I pressed the point, letting the silence stretch, forcing her to hear the word. "You lied about your financial standing to a potential investor using my resources? And you think my correction is the problem, not the deceit? We are family. You don't do this to family." She screamed, and the line was suddenly taken over by a much deeper, angrier voice. "Robert. Jessica, you listen to me. You fix this right now. You write another email, you apologize, you say it was a misunderstanding. We are your parents. We asked you to make a small sacrifice, and you blow up your brother's entire future over a petty $12,000. Don't you dare ruin this for us." "Petty $12,000? I asked, my voice finally hardening. "That petty sum paid for your entire week of luxury, your first-class seats, and the staged backdrop for a lie. You took my gift, dismissed me, and then tried to leverage my money to secure a $500,000 deal for yourselves. And now you're asking me to apologize? This is not a misunderstanding, Dad. This is the consequence of treating me like an expendable wallet." I heard frantic whispering in the background, likely Kevin realizing the full scope of my move. He hadn't said a word yet, but I could feel his panic through the line. They were cornered. They were desperate. They were finally feeling the pressure. I knew I had them. "I am not writing any apologies," I finished, cutting off Robert's next furious outburst. "I want my $12,000 back in my account within the next 24 hours. And until that happens, consider any and all future financial relationships with this family terminated. This is not a request. This is the cost of your week-long privacy." I hung up, my hand shaking not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the confrontation. I had just traded a vacation for a war, and the first battle was decisively won. The tension was now absolute, and the moral dilemma, was I justified in destroying my brother's business opportunity over their disrespect, was staring me right in the face. I didn't care. They had to be held accountable. The emotional pressure cooker was set to maximum. Kevin called not to beg, but to reveal the real reason for the lie. The $12,000 wasn't about the VC deal. It was about Sarah's secret debt. The phone went silent for almost an entire hour after the screaming fit from my parents. The silence felt different this time, heavy, tactical, like the calm before a final devastating artillery strike. My hands were still cold, but my head was clear. I felt a strange mix of self-loathing for the nuclear bomb I just dropped on my brother's professional life, and icy satisfaction that I had finally stood up to their decade-long financial abuse. I was waiting for the money transfer or another wave of accusations. It was Kevin who finally broke the silence. The caller ID flashed, and this time I picked up immediately. I was ready for his familiar whiny excuses, the manipulative attempt to appeal to my family loyalty. But the voice on the other end wasn't whiny. It was low, shaky, and sounded genuinely defeated, stripped of all bravado. "Jay," he said, his voice barely a rasp. "It's over. Harrison pulled the plug completely. They don't want to touch me with a 10-foot pole now. They think I'm dishonest. Thanks to you." "You did that to yourself, Kev," I replied, keeping my tone flat. "You lied. You used my money as part of your stage-managed success. You cut me out. You thought you could just take it." There was a long pause filled with the faint, distant sound of ocean waves. They were still at the villa. "You're right," he admitted, and that single word, "right," was the true twist of the knife. Kevin never admitted he was wrong. I lied. And I was an arrogant jerk for thinking I could get away with it. Mom and Dad pushed it, but I went along. It was easier to pretend you were too busy than to tell you the truth about the villa. And the truth is? It was all about staging the perfect backdrop for your VC pitch? That's what a $500,000 deal costs you. I challenged, my voice laced with venom. He sighed, a sound of profound exhaustion. "No, Jay. The VC thing. That was the cover story for Mom and Dad. It gave them a reason to justify all this expense and the lie to you. The money, the $12,000, wasn't for the pitch. It was for Sarah's debt." My entire body went rigid. "What are you talking about?" "Sarah, she has a spending problem. Not just clothes but online gambling. She's been hiding it for years. Last month, she got into some serious trouble with a predatory short-term loan company. She quietly racked up nearly $10,000 in high-interest debt, trying to cover her losses." Kevin confessed, the words tumbling out like stones. The threats started getting real. They were going to serve papers, maybe even come to the house. He explained that he had scrambled to find a solution, terrified of his wife's secret becoming public, especially to his conservative parents. He'd managed to borrow a small amount from a business acquaintance, but it wasn't enough. I needed $10,000 in cash fast, to just make the problem go away before she lost the house or worse. When you offered the vacation, it was like a lifeline, Jay. It was the only big chunk of money I knew I could access and pay back later quietly. The original plan wasn't to stiff you. It was to cancel the villa last minute, claim the rental agency kept the huge deposit, and then Mom and Dad would pressure you to forgive the loss. I felt the bottom drop out of my own moral high ground. The situation wasn't a simple case of familial greed and entitlement. It was a desperate, chaotic mess rooted in a secret, devastating addiction. My brother wasn't just a self-serving jerk. He was a husband trying to shield his wife from ruin. The $12,000 wasn't funding a party. It was a clumsy, misguided attempt at a rescue mission. "So you used my money to pay off Sarah's gambling debt, and then let me think you were using it for a joyride?" I whispered, my anger now mixed with a confusing wave of pity and shock. "Sounds awful when you say it, I know. But Mom and Dad immediately jumped on the let's use the trip idea and spun the whole VC thing. They wanted to make sure they got their luxury week out of the deal. They didn't even know about the debt until I told them after your email blew up the pitch. They're only mad about the $500,000 opportunity, not my debt to you." The moral dilemma was agonizing. I had just destroyed my brother's future. A $500,000 deal that could have stabilized his family, over a debt he incurred trying to save his wife from a secret addiction. He was still wrong for using my money and lying, but his motivation had shifted from simple greed to desperate protection. "You need to transfer the $12,000 back to me immediately," I stated, not as a demand, but as a requirement for the next step. "How much of it is left?" "None. It's all gone. $10,000 to the loan sharks, and the rest was used to smooth things over with the rental agency for the last-minute changes to the booking, changes that kept your name off the check-in list," he admitted with a fresh wave of shame. "Kevin, you're in San Diego. The villa is paid for. You are essentially bankrupting your family to save face with Sarah's problem, and you've lost your big deal. You still have 2 days left in the villa. What are you going to do?" He was silent. The ball was now entirely in my court. My choice was no longer about justice for myself. It was about the fate of his entire family, including Sarah, who was clearly struggling with a deeply hidden problem. Should I demand payment immediately and watch his life crumble, or use my leverage to force a different kind of resolution? I didn't demand the money. I gave Kevin a horrifying choice. Pay me back or tell Sarah's secret to Mom and Dad. The silence of the last day was my answer. The weight of the truth, Sarah's secret gambling debt and Kevin's desperate attempt to cover it up, didn't lift the tension. It merely shifted it, transforming my justified anger into a calculated, complex form of control. My confrontation had not just exposed their greed, but a deep festering rot at the core of my brother's marriage. Now the $12,000 wasn't just a sum of money. It was the price of their hidden shame. I gave Kevin 24 hours to think, hanging up on him without offering comfort, forgiveness, or a path forward. I needed to solidify the terms of my revenge, which had evolved from simple financial retribution into a heavy moral lesson. On the final night of their vacation, day 8, the phone rang again. It was Kevin. I could hear the roar of the ocean outside the villa and the forced, cheerful chatter of my mother in the background, likely celebrating the end of a successful trip, completely oblivious to the chaos I'd unleashed. "Jay, I haven't slept." Kevin's voice was hollow. "I told Sarah what happened. She's devastated, not just about the money but about the lie. She's agreed to seek help. But I have no way to get you the $12,000. Not right now. The $500,000 deal is dead. My accounts are empty." "I know," I stated flatly. "I wasn't calling to ask if you had it. I was calling to tell you how you will pay me back." I leaned into the phone, delivering the ultimatum that I knew would cut him deeper than any legal action. "You won't pay me with cash, Kevin. You'll pay me with transparency." I laid out the terms, my voice cold, clinical, and unforgiving. "First, you will call every financial institution and acquaintance you owe money to, including the one you borrowed from to pay off Sarah's loan, and you will tell them the exact timeline for repayment, including a penalty interest rate. Second, you will get Sarah into a structured long-term therapy program for her addiction, and you will provide me with the contact information for her counselor. This is not about judgment. This is about ensuring you don't come back to my door in 6 months with a bigger crisis. This is the condition for my silence on Sarah's secret debt." I paused, letting him process the professional and emotional commitment I was demanding. Then came the final condition, the true culmination of my revenge on my parents. "And third, you have a choice regarding the $12,000 you stole from me. You have exactly 1 month 30 days to figure out how to pay me back in full. If you miss that 1-month deadline by a single day, I will immediately forward every piece of documentation, the $12,000 transfer, the loan papers, the gambling site records you told me about, to Mom and Dad." I knew this was the ultimate leverage. My parents valued their perfect family image above all else. Learning that their golden son had lost $500,000 and that their daughter-in-law was a gambling addict would crush them. It would shatter their facade completely. "You wouldn't," Kevin gasped. "Jay, you know what that would do to Mom. It would destroy them." "I know exactly what it would do, Kevin. And that is why it is the deadline. You wanted to protect Sarah? Fine. You wanted to lie to me and use my resources? Fine. Now you will work harder than you ever have in your life. Not for some fleeting dream, but to save your marriage and to keep your parents' carefully constructed world from collapsing. That is your repayment plan. The $12,000 is now the collateral for your honesty and commitment." I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow sense of finality. I wasn't just taking my money back. I was demanding accountability for everyone involved. "This isn't about the money anymore," I concluded. "It's about making sure that the next time you look at me, you remember the price of my generosity and the cost of your lies. You have 30 days. I hung up. The next morning, day 9, my phone remained silent. I didn't receive a call, a text, or an email from any of them. They flew home that day, returning from the most expensive and destructive vacation of their lives. They landed in their reality, one where the $12,000 debt wasn't just financial, but a ticking clock counting down to the complete exposure of their collective failures. 1 month passed. The first postcard I received had been a declaration of war. The last silence was the answer. On the 30th day, precisely at noon, I got an email notification. My bank account showed an incoming transfer. $12,000. 00. No message, no note, no apology attached. Just the number. I stared at it for a long time. I knew what it cost him. It wasn't Kevin's $500,000 dream that paid for it. It was probably his last desperate remaining asset, or a high-interest loan he had to pay back to a new, different acquaintance. The money was back, but nothing was resolved. The family dynamics were irreparably fractured. I had my money, but I had lost the illusion of a loving family and gained the burden of a horrifying secret. I had won the battle, but I felt utterly defeated. Was standing up for myself worth the cost of holding this leverage over my own brother? I still don't know. The only thing I am certain of is that sometimes the true price of family is not what you spend, but the moral line you are forced to cross just to reclaim your own worth. And that debt, unlike the $12,000, may never be fully repaid.